What's up, guys? We're back with another episode of Raw Roundtable, and this week we are back with someone who is very, very dear to my heart, my college roommate, Asia Williams. I'll give you the chance to introduce yourself, anything you want to say about yourself to the people.
Okay, yes. First of all, it's an honor to be here. I am just so excited for the opportunity. Very grateful. But my name is Asia Williams. I am 22. I live in Atlanta, Georgia. And yeah, like God is just moving in my life. And I love to, share my testimony and inspire others to let them know that if He could do it for me, He could do it for them. So,
Amen. I know that's right. And for like I said, me and Asia were college roommates, so we done seen each other before Christ, and we seen
right.
each other
Let's
after
get into
Christ. I feel like if anybody can attest to it, living in the same space as somebody, we can for sure. So I'm very excited for this, and I told Asia, of course, God placed on my heart just to have her share her testimony. I'll ask questions about it, but first, I want to talk about our college life, what college life was like for both of us. And I know we had life before college and all that, but what would you say was your earliest memory of, I don't want to put it like this, doing what you want to do in a
Mm,
sense. Like, where your parents have you doing things
yeah,
and then versus when you go on your own. Cause I mean, yeah, I know it was like for me.
right. So that's a good question. Um, my mom was very strict. I would just say that my dad wasn't really that involved as I got older, but my mom was just pretty strict on what me and my sister could do, especially with school. She was just really on us about, our grades and, just us being home, not being out like crazy. But yeah, I would say like junior year, senior year of high school, I really started to step out and venture and do things, behind her back, of course. Um, and as time, prevailed and I knew that I was going to be off to college soon, I definitely wanted to have the opportunity to do things that I never tried. I was like, I'm going off to college. I'm about to be able to be up all times of night, go where I want to
Mm.
go, experiencing things, partying. So I was looking forward to that type of stuff as well as, academics, but definitely social life. And so I would just say, yeah, junior year, senior year, I started to get into a lot of things. And then when I got off to college, I had already had that, background of
Mhm.
experiencing, party life. That when yeah, ninth, not ninth grade, freshman year of college is probably when I really started doing a lot.
You started well.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think for me, when I went to school, like you said, it started a couple years before. Like I
Mhm.
feel like that was the pregame.
Right, right.
And then once you got to college, it was like, okay, now I can actually do what I want to do. And for me too, I don't know where I was sharing this at, but I felt like when I went to college, like no, I knew nobody knew me. I could create a new image for myself. Nobody knew my parents
Right.
or none of that. So I felt like I could honestly do what I wanted to do.
Hmm.
So I mean that makes a lot of sense. And I didn't know that your mom was strict growing up. Like,
Girl,
I did not know
not
that.
play. It
Your
was
mom
more so
doesn't give that at all.
she definitely loosened up. I mean, I think she just kind of had no choice. Me and my sister were like, look, like, gotta let us, come from under the nest. Like, we're good kids, but yeah, no. Um, Definitely more like middle school, elementary school. Like, she would not let us watch TV during the weeks. Like, if she came home and the TV was on, we would get in trouble. Like, she would know what channel she left it on, and we would try to like sneak and make sure we put it back, but she would still know somehow that we like watch TV. She was really just on us with a lot of stuff like chores, like going with friends. She was definitely more strict in the beginning, but as I got later in,
I mean, I don't know if you know this. Like, do you think it has to do with like her life before and
definitely,
like the things she's experienced and all
yeah.
that?
She has opened up about a lot of those things and why she was so, we
Mhm.
would say like overprotective, but she just said because in her life she had a lot of freedom. She got into a lot of things, so she didn't want us to kind of make those similar
Yeah,
mistakes and that type of stuff. But yeah,
yeah. And I mean, when they say it, it makes sense. But then it's
right,
like, dang, you're just gonna snatch my whole life away from me.
right. Let me experience. Let me touch the stove.
Here, let me just touch it. Don't tell me I need to touch it. Let me just touch it.
Right.
No, I absolutely understand that. And so, I mean, even from there, like when you went to college and you experienced these things, like what was it? Because I mean, I didn't know it was even that time period, so it wasn't like as long as I thought or assumed. Because you could think people been doing stuff for a long
So,
time.
so
Yeah, and
now, what are
so
we talking about doing? Let's be specific, because
I mean
it's
anything. So my next question was actually going to be like, what was your things that kept you kind of in the lukewarm
mhm,
area or state of living?
yeah.
Because and you also grew up in church. Let's not forget that. Like your
Mhm.
mom introduced you to Jesus and all that kind of stuff. Like even when I came, we were in the room together. Like she used to be watching Elevation,
Yep.
all of that. I mean, and I didn't have a church, but I would just go visit church and stuff. So she like you had that relationship. So what was your I guess choice of things or things that you like to do that was like outside of maybe the things that you would do now?
Yeah, that's a good question. Okay, that makes sense. So honestly, the first thing that I think I got into was smoking weed. I started doing that. Yeah, probably like ninth grade, 10th grade, maybe even like ninth grade. I'm sure 14, and yeah, but I wasn't really venturing out with like a lot of other stuff. I never really liked to drink, but I did do it when I would go to parties and stuff.
Yeah.
I would definitely say I started smoking very early. Even like stuff that I'm not proud of, like watching porn, just that type of stuff. All that really started for me like in high school. So I think those were like the areas in my life that I just knew, were keeping me kind of bound, and I was in sin. I was running to these things as like a place of escape, but it wasn't. Yeah, I say until I got to college that I started really drinking, really smoking more, really, really like, uh, yeah, spending more time doing these things. But
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Because like even when we would do it, it's not that we ever like try to validate it. Like like I feel like we knew we were doing, but it's like we still did what we wanted to do. I mean, being perfectly honest, like
right,
I'm not about to sit here and say God wants me smoking this right now. Like I know good and well that he doesn't, but it was just doing what we wanted to do in that time. And I think that those are like common areas too that a lot of people like struggle in and go through. Because I honestly didn't know a lot of things that I struggled with like internally and stuff, which we can talk about later too. Until after I came to Christ, like I didn't know that internal struggles like insecurities and stuff could be a thing too
right.
that you could battle with and wrestle with. But yeah, so I was about to ask something specifically to what you just said. Come on, Holy.
It's
I
gonna
don't know.
come back to you.
You gotta come back to me.
Right. So wait, not to lose your train of thought,
Mhm.
but when did that start for you? Because I know you're talking about internal struggles and like running into those things, but was it? I
Mhm.
know you said college was kind of the start of
Yeah,
actually.
so I mean, I think honestly around the same time. Well, wait, like drinking, smoking, and drinking and stuff.
Yeah, like just
So for me, um, I think I was in the 10th grade. So around the same time, I was in 9th or 10th grade. And of course, it was just like the people I was hanging around, they were doing it. So I was like, let me try it. But I didn't really like know what it was.
yeah.
For real. Like, they was just like, I didn't know what it was going to do to me. I didn't know what being high felt like.
Hmm.
And of course, like from there, it just increased. Like, I mean, I would do it. It wasn't even like an everyday thing, but when you went out with your friends on the weekend, like I would do it then. And then when I started, I want to say my senior year, that's when like I started to smoke a lot more like pins and
Hmm.
all of that stuff. Like I was trying to find
And we
any
have the
way,
same life.
and not like a crack addict, but like
Yeah,
I'm
me
just like,
too.
well, I don't want to smell like weed, so let me just get a pin. But of course, having more access to it, it just
Mm.
made you do it more. And
Wow.
so I think that's when that started. And then there are plenty of times where I personally didn't want to do it or like being in church my whole life. So going to that one church service and it's just like, okay, I need to stop doing this. But
Right. Yeah.
I didn't stop it. I continue going or I always found a reason or excuse. And then of course in coming to college and all that, I knew that I wanted to be serious about Jesus, but I was like, I'm here to kind of live a little.
Right. Yeah.
So, I didn't hop right in just like everything Jesus, but I still knew my foundation. And
Mhm.
so, yeah. And then so I did it still for a while in college, but I feel like college is when I was kind of going back and forth with what was benefiting me, what wasn't, and I truly was trying to find a place of where I was truly happy and healthy. And then porn for me, because I mean those are honestly like my struggles too. And the weird thing I find about porn is that one, your parents don't got to introduce you to it. They don't say like, "Here's porn,"
Right.
like, but just somehow coincidentally, everybody like kind of digs into it
Yeah.
at some point in their life. And so I don't even know when. I couldn't even tell you when it started for me.
Hmm.
But it's like that, like what do you call it? Like that dopamine, like in how
Yeah.
Instagram and stuff does, like it gives you that feel
That
good.
rush. Yep.
And so, yeah, and that even started then, and even beyond, like, I mean, even the physical part of it, like masturbation, all those things, like I struggle with those. And so I think that was probably during the same time I was like smoking, of course. And so, yeah, I was never really a big drinker unless like I went out, but I still didn't like to drink. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that was that. But yeah, I don't really know. I don't think anything else was really like a big struggle for me. I've always been a sweet person.
Hmm.
Half people probably wouldn't even know that I smoke. 'Cause I told you I smoke. And
Right.
so yeah. I mean, same for you. I wouldn't have known half the things that we once bonded over until like we actually spend time together talking to each other.
Hmm. That's a
Yeah.
great point. I want to say something to that. When you were saying how you were like in that process of just figuring out and actually trying to be better,
Hmm.
but you knew that you were still having some tendencies to go back to things that God was
Hmm.
definitely calling you away from. Um, there was a time in our relationship where I feel like we were both like just on that on that path, like, okay, we know what we're very aware of the choices we're making.
Hmm.
We know God is calling us higher, but we still, did these things. And I felt like it would be many times more for you that you would, be stepping away or just like
Hmm.
I could tell you were in that space and you're just like, yeah, like I'm focused on God, like I gotta do,
Yeah.
this
And
is
then
how we
and
get up here. And sorry, what were you about to say?
no, and I was gonna say, yeah, it'll be those times where I'm just like, now I really want to be sipping. It's like, dang, Asia, are we gonna hit top block tonight?
Right.
And for y'all who don't know the reference, top block is where we used to go.
Yeah, to go and smoke. But yeah, no, I would just you don't even know, but in those moments, I would feel convicted because I'm like, okay, she's getting her stuff together, and just as the way that she loves Christ and the things that she's going to pursue him, I could be doing. And so it would just, hit me like, okay, do I really need to be, rolling this blunt by myself now? Or do I even need to smoke? Do I, need to be trying to go to this party? And so I think that even in those moments, like it was, God was using you to call me higher. But then, like I said, we would,
Wow.
yeah, we would sometimes,
And
um,
I wouldn't even know, like, cause it probably took me a lot in my brain, in my overthinking
mm,
brain, to even say that I wasn't gonna do it. Like, I
yeah,
probably had to come up with a reason, like, well, how I'm gonna tell her that I'm not, and like, how I'm tell her that I don't want to do this right now, but
right.
it's not to say that don't condemn me if I want to do it next
We would,
week. And
yeah.
now I feel like that was constantly like my wrestle and my battle.
Mm,
That's also one question I'm gonna ask. Like, I didn't know to what degree, like, was I gonna lose people?
mm,
And being a people pleaser, like, I didn't want people to not like me or feel like, oh, now you're weird because you once did these things and now you're acting like you're better than me. Like, I never wanted that. So I always over calculated and processed things like, okay, how am I gonna tell this person this for them to not be mad at me or feel a type of way towards me personally? And so my question to you is like, what were the things that you would say, or even people who kept you in the same space? I mean, you don't have to write anybody out. Like, it was this person,
yeah,
but
yeah,
like even just environments like family, was it friends and like boyfriends, anything like that that kept you in a space of
yeah.
not like fully committing or even wanting to totally give yourself to God? Because it's not that you weren't aware of the things that God was saying because you were
Yeah.
listening to the word, and we know that the word does the work, but it's like, what were the things that kept you in those places?
I mean, in Proverbs it talks about bad company corrupting good morals, and so that's exactly what it was. I mean, it was the people that I was around. Um, yeah, I definitely, could say like family, friends. At the time, I was just hanging around a lot of older people, So even like all my life, like my sister, she's 2 years older than me. So I would always follow behind her. Her friends would become my friends, and that was kind of just how it went, through middle school, high school, and even in college. So I just was hanging around a lot of people who were older than me doing these things, and so I was experiencing them at a younger age. But I would just say, every time that I tried to, you know, basically put these things aside, stop sinning, truly follow Christ, and yeah, just surrender these things to Him. It just felt like I just felt so like an outcast. Like I just didn't no longer relate or connect to the people that I, was surrounded around in the ways that I once, did, because the things that we had in common were sin. Sin was the
Yeah.
only thing we kind of really had in common. So how can I go from, being around you and how we typically spend our time together is smoking, drinking, partying, just talking about inappropriate things, gossiping, like all of these things, and still feel like I relate to you and connect to you now that those things no longer serve me any purpose. I realize they're not fruitful. I don't want to do them anymore. And so anytime I felt like I was put back in those places, or I was going to familiar, groups of people, I would just feel this same emptiness. Like, yeah, I no longer fit in here. Like God is calling me higher. And so I think that it was in the elevating my circle, or even just distancing myself, like really using that time of isolation to allow God to really do that inner work in me, and to get rid of my people pleasing habits and
Mhm.
just, certain things within me. It was easy to overcome those feelings. But yeah, I mean, I just, in relationships, I don't know. I don't want to say it like this because it's not to put anybody down, but my mom would always say, like, if you're the best thing going in your circle, then, like, basically, who's calling you higher? And I would look
Yeah.
around, and a lot of people around me didn't know Christ. They weren't going to church. They weren't, reading their Bibles. You would be the person in my life I was talking to
Mhm.
about God. And so I really just didn't have enough people around me who had, that similar,
Mhm.
just love for Christ. And so I would really compromise a lot. I would get to a better place, and then, come back around these people, and they would just make me feel self righteous, or like, oh, like you said, oh, you think you better. And then just dealing
Yeah.
with those emotions, I would fall back into the same sins. And it wasn't until, I really kind of positioned them at a different place in my life that I actually saw a difference.
And I actually think that's funny that you said like you think like they think you're self righteous and then you would fall back. And I don't think that's talked about enough, like in the Christian world, like of people seeing you a certain way. So you feel like now you have to live below the means that maybe you feel God is calling you to, or maybe you heard the preacher say, like, be bold, like be courageous. But now you're like, dang, I gotta be timid. I act like I'm insecure. Now I'm like,
Yeah.
instead of coming out of things, you went back into things just for the comfort of your circle or the people that you were comfortable hanging around. And it's like to question how many times do we go back to environments and situations that cause us to be bound or comfortable just because it's just what we know.
Right.
Like we don't even try anything new because we're afraid of disappointing what was. And I'm
That's
like,
the one.
I'm done with that. Like, that's
Yes.
one thing I made for year 22. I said, like, I can't make anybody comfortable anymore.
Mm.
I can't. If I'm making other people comfortable, God can't use me. Because I'm only gonna be listening to the people around me.
Yeah.
Like they say go left, I'm going left because that's gonna make them feel good. And God could be saying, Count, I've been telling you to go right for I don't know how long. And it's like I don't want God to not be able to trust me because I only trust in humans. Like what? Like what? No, that sounds stupid. Even coming from my that sounds very stupid.
Very silly. Wow.
Like what?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's one thing that I know that I'm personally like. I don't care if it hurts your feelings. I apologize unless it's genuinely rude.
Yes.
I don't even know what to say anymore. I
Yeah.
don't even know what to say anymore.
That's deep.
It's yeah. I feel like I went on a tangent there.
No, I mean that's real. Like, do you feel like you? Sorry, but to
No, you're
you were
fine.
going somewhere else. But do you feel like you still struggle with that even now? Because I know you said for 2022, like that was your goal, and I'm
Yeah.
asking that question because even before you graduated, like you were really already, I
Yeah,
saw that
and
that
that's
change.
the crazy part.
Yeah.
People And that's how I know that sometimes things can be of God, but you just might not be living in it because you are a person who always said you've seen those things in me. I
Yeah.
just never felt it or seen it about myself. Like me internally always felt like I was doing whatever I was doing next to please another person. I never felt that anything that I was doing was connected to genuinely making God happy. Like
Oh,
I never felt that anything was just like this is gonna make God happy. I was like, oh, my parents might like that I'm going to church and doing this. So it honestly took finding God for myself, experiencing like and believing in what He did for me, not just what my parents said growing up. This is what you believe. This is what you do. But like you actually have to believe what
yeah.
Jesus did to have a relationship. Like you can make it up, but honestly, that you're just gonna be living like the people in the Bible who claim to know everything that Jesus was saying, but just wasn't living it. And
Yeah.
so I didn't want to do that anymore. And so, like, when I'm saying, like, for year 22 is pretty much like living out the very things that I preach to other people.
Mm.
Like, I don't want to be a hypocrite. I don't want to
Got
be seen as just the person who goes to church and seems like they're living the life, but like there's no evidence in my life that
Mm.
God is like there. Because I mean, fruit speaks.
It does.
Fruit speaks. So I don't
Does.
want nobody look at my life and be like, she has no fruit. So who is the guy she's serving? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to make him look bad out here.
First of all, I just want to say that was very well said. But even to your point, like your fruit has been speaking for you. I was saying, even since before you graduated, I could definitely tell that you were already doing those things. You were not hanging around groups and just doing all the inner work that it took to get to that place of truly living for the Lord, living for that audience of one. And I saw that like a long time ago. So I never, like you were saying, kind of, I guess I viewed you in your wholeness. I never viewed you from the lens that you viewed yourself. And so, in that way,
Hey.
it, no, just in that way, I just always could see the ways you were very hard on yourself. I would tell you this all the time. Like,
Yes.
you critique yourself so much. And I think that's where a lot of the overthinking, the anxiety comes from, because we're looking at ourselves and we see our flaws, but sometimes we just don't give ourselves enough grace. And I would just constantly tell you, like, God is not looking at you like this.
Like
Like, you were
she
18, making it seem like you have, like, not to say this is what you were portraying, but to me, it's like you sound like you already have failed, like you already have,
yeah.
just done so much. But your life is speaking for itself. Your fruit, like, just look at all you accomplished at such a young age. How different, we just, when we talk about like chain breakers and just those who are called to high callings in their family, just the
Mhm.
things that they're doing, like, you set the tone. Like, now everything that comes after you is greatness, because you have already broken a lot of those things by getting them done earlier, showing the people looking up to you that you can do this too. You don't have to follow the crowd. I'm 17, 16, pursuing these things, and 18, 19, doing these things. And so I just think that a lot of the times I would just look and be like, why are you so hard on yourself? And you were talking about, fruitfulness. And I just definitely would never look at your life and say that, like, God is definitely moving through you. He's all the things, even your, hunger and just love for his people, just wanting to give back your time. All this is genuine. It's not for money, it's not for applause, the people around you. It's strictly because God has put that love for his people within you. And so I just think that you resemble all those things very well, and your fruit is definitely speaking. But I get what you're saying. I just don't
Yeah.
think that
Well,
you would
say
always
I
see that.
appreciate that. I'm trying to hold back tears right there. I'm trying to hold back. No, and you're not the first person. But if there was one line I could say Asia said to me, probably all time ago, was how hard I was on myself. Like I don't, it's unhealthy. I mean, anybody who's hard on themselves, it's unhealthy.
Mm-hmm.
But I know I do appreciate everything you just said, and I will take that and just even look at my life for even where it is now
Yes.
to say that it's not that my fruit is not speaking. Yes,
Mm.
there's always things for us to improve in, but we also have to live in what God has given us to do now and what
Yes.
He's allowed us to have and be experiencing the blessings of now. And
Mm-hmm.
so, yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you for snapping
Because
back.
you do so much. Like, you've done so much and you're going to do so much. So, just sometimes we have to reflect and just see where God has brought us from. I think that is just
Yeah.
the beautiful thing about, not looking back at your past to feel shame, guilt, condemnation, but looking back to say, wow, like God was with me then. And look how much I have changed and transformed, and I'm looking more like Christ. Like that. That's what that's what
Yeah.
your life is. So
And that's what the measure should always be. Like, how
yes.
much more am I looking more like Christ? That is good. And that is good. You done turned this back on me. Like, what is this? What is this? What is
I just had to
this?
get it out because I feel like back in the dorm room, I'm like, Kiana, girl,
Yeah.
yes, you cannot.
Like, what are I'm sure the times I was mentioning to Asia, she was like, what is this girl even talking about?
No, not all the time. Just joking.
You gotta be like, does she not even know half the things that she's already done? Is she talking about a grade or yeah?
Yeah.
Sometimes I just need somebody to listen to the vent. I did say the vent makes sense.
Right. Exactly. Let me just get it out.
But yes, but even for you, even where you are now, what would you say? I want to know like what was the turning point in your walk when you like laid aside everything. I don't want to say everything because we all have like things we're still working
Yeah.
through. But like when was Christ where you wanted your whole heart to be?
Mm, that's a great question. Let's see. Now we're really about to get into it. We're really about to get into it.
Really?
I feel like it's honestly, I think I had two pivotal turning points. Like
Hmm.
a feeling like that. Now the second time, that's why it's two, is because I didn't, fully let him transform me in those ways. But I definitely feel like that surrenderance, that just laying everything at his feet,
Hmm.
definitely happened twice in my life. So the first time I was in high school, it was my senior year of high school, and I just, so many things are coming up. That's just when a lot of pressure is on you. You have to figure out what school you want to go to. You got people asking like, "What comes next?" This and that. And I think up until that point, it was just really hard for me to see what my future looked like. Like I was so caught up in my present that anytime I was thinking ahead, like, okay, this is where, we all as, young people, and even now, like we think ahead, we think about what our life will look
Hmm.
like in the next 5 years. So that definitely was taking place, but it just was like a mental block at that time in my life, like the ending of my high school year, to figure out like what I truly wanted to do. And if I was doing these things, for me, like these are my desires, this is what God, has called me to, or this is what, my family is saying that I should do, or, just really figuring all those things out. And I don't know, just with the pressure of it all, just kind of the place that I was in, I was, still sinning and dealing with all these emotions with relationships, friendships, family. And I got to a really low point of feeling depressed. And what's so crazy is I would judge myself because I'm like, well, how are you depressed and you're serving at church? How are you depressed and you're reading your Bible? How are you depressed and you say God? And so I would just like constantly struggle with those feelings of just inadequacy, or like, am I truly where I think I am? Do I truly know God the ways that I say I do? And yeah, I just remember at the end of my senior year, I ended up, cutting my wrist. And I was very sad. Like I was just, it was a very low point in my life. And even when I did it, it didn't bring me, it just brought more sorrow. It brought more guilt. Like, why did you just do that? Like immediately I was in regret. It wasn't like, oh, this was like a temporary relief of pain. Like it just, in that moment, more pain fell on me. So that was just like a really low point. And I had to spend the summer wearing long sleeve shirts and jackets and, like trying to hide now what had become like a big insecurity for me. And,
Hmm.
the enemy was using that like constantly in the back of my mind, like, oh, you're depressed and now you're doing these things, and like suicidal thoughts were coming. I'm like, this is supposed to be, thinking back, like one of the biggest happiest, proudest moments in my life. Like I'm walking into a new season. Like I should be joyful. I should be
Yeah.
happy. And I like spent that summer before coming to Spelman, like just in isolation, or, to people, I'm around a bunch of people, but inside, sorry, I was dealing with like self isolation and, guilt, hurt, all these things within, just depression. It was just very real for me. And so I remember just talking to God before coming to school, like, I just can't do this anymore. Like, I am tired of, these negative thinking patterns, these habits, just dwelling in places that are no longer serving me, just looking at my life and dwelling on my mistakes and things that I can't change. Like, there's only so much that we truly have control
Yeah.
over. And so just realizing that if I don't have the control to change those things, then just be hopeful for, how God is going to use them and, what's to come, because it's not always going to look like this. It's not always going to be like this. And so I truly just spent some time with him, just getting back to that place. Like, and it was just like, like I like to tell people, like, I was hugged by Jesus. Like, he met me in that place and he told me, like, everything is going to be okay. And I just truly felt like, okay, yes, I do know him, even though, I'm having this low point. I truly do know him. And I love to, just look at Elijah in the Bible
Yeah.
and like just, his story, because he was very courageous. He was very brave, but,
Yeah.
he had a low moment too. And just how God, had the ravens feed him and he just let him just have his moment. Like, that's just what I felt like God was doing for me. So I spent a lot of time in that book of the Bible and just in prayer. And I just knew that was a very pivotal turning point where I just was no longer letting that be my story. Like, it's a new start, it's a new
Yeah.
beginning. And I started to walk through that. And so, even then I was just changing. Like, I was still sinning, like we talked about. I came to
Mhm.
college, I was still doing stuff, but that seed had been planted in my heart. Like, I knew that
You remembered that moment.
that moment exactly. And so as time progressed, I would just say my so this was during COVID. This was my junior year, so the summer before my junior year of college, and I ended up, fornicating, getting into this situation, and I had to get an abortion, and I think that was like the second pivotal turning point for me,
Mhm.
because just in that, it was once again a reflection of, okay, I'm saying I love you, Lord. I'm saying that I, want to live for you, and now I keep once again going back to places that are no longer serving me and doing things that you're not in, you're not proud of. And I just had that moment of just once again guilt, shame, condemnation, being depressed, and just trying to figure out those things. And I mean, even in that point, I just was very lonely. I just felt very alone. I felt like that was like my biggest mistake. My, you know, we all, I don't know, we
Like
all
the
feel like,
thing you never want to tell anybody about.
yes, exactly. And so, just God definitely met me once again where I was, and I got hugged by Jesus a second time, and he just, really showed me that this does not have to be my story. Like, this does not have to be the ending point for me. This doesn't have to be the thing that, I feel like there's no hope in. Like, he's going to use this as part of my testimony for someone else. And so, I just spent some months, just some time really getting back to a better mental place, and then truly just picturing what that was like the first time in my life where I felt like I was truly picturing what I wanted my life to look like. And so the new year came, and I was just like so hopeful for the new year. I used to be with people and we're doing our New Year's resolutions and talking about what this year would be. And every year I would have these things and I would never fall through with them. I would be like, what is the point of it all? But just that year specifically, I was just very hopeful and very excited. This was coming into 2022. I was just very excited about like what the new year would bring. And so I got baptized, in the month of January. And that's just really when I was like, oh, yeah, she's gone. Like, there's no going back. The
Yeah.
fornicating, we're leaving it in the past. The just like the drinking, the smoking, the being depressed. Like, I'm leaving those things behind me. And so I went into the new year, just really with that heart posture, and I just immediately saw God moving. Like, it was
Mhm.
no gas,
Like
no
it didn't
brake.
even take long to get
No,
rid of those things, huh?
no.
It just happens.
Yeah, it was so natural. It was, he was doing it. It wasn't my doing. He was, ridding me of those things that no longer serve fruit in my life. And so I would just say as time progressed, I started to feel like anytime I did even, like do the smallest thing, it was the end of the world. Like, that's when I got to that point of like just truly holding myself at this standard. Like, you can't fall short. You can't do this. And if you
Mhm.
do, did you really mean, what you said? Was
Yeah.
sincere. And so I wasn't doing, like falling into sin or intentionally sinning, but there were moments when I still, would take a shot with my friends or,
Mhm.
do just the smallest thing that I did. I just felt so much guilt about. And I just knew that was, you know, at one point I had to realize I wasn't giving myself grace. I was acting like,
Yeah.
I was righteous and I just was never going to fall short. And that you would deceive yourself to think that, you're not going to sin when we live in a fallen
Yeah.
world. And, this flesh is still going to be fleshes. So, yeah,
Still blushing.
I had to definitely realize that. And then I also had to, just like I said, just give myself grace because once again, looking at that measurement, I just was
Mhm.
not where I was. And so I just think from there, just that pressure of not trying to be perfect, not trying to, like just rush this process. And it's a process. Like we expect things to,
It's literally a process.
yeah,
And no, despite and how many people preach it's a process, but still don't treat it like a process.
instant. We want instant results, instant
Yeah,
gratification. We need to see these things. Like I need to be changed tomorrow.
exactly. Or you can't go this place with me, or you can't do this
Mhm.
because people are gonna still see you as sinful. I can't be hanging around somebody like this. But it's
Yeah.
like, how many of us are like? I was talking about this with my little sister. How many of us are trying to play God in people's life just because we want them to look a certain way?
Ooh.
Like, and we can't have people look a certain. We can't say that God was God in our life and then robbing the
Mm.
opportunity for God to God. I'm like, I'm gonna tell somebody you need to stop smoking and drinking if you're gonna hang out with me. Like, my friends don't do
Oh
that.
goodness.
Like, God didn't tell me I couldn't come to church and do all
Wow.
of that when I was still doing that stuff. He literally accepted me as I was and welcomed me through the process.
Yeah.
And we rob so many people because we don't let them live out the process that
Mm.
God wants them to live out. Because
That's
had you not had those two encounters, you wouldn't be where you are in God. If somebody was making you, Asia, go to church every Sunday, you need to do this, or if you don't do this, you're a bad person, you wouldn't have it like as a heart thing.
yeah. Yeah.
And sin only happens and all that is because we don't have good in our heart. And
Hmm.
only God can place good things in our heart and change our heart around.
Yeah.
So if he's not changing our heart, then we're honestly just faking. We're honestly just faking. I don't know. And the power is not in faking. So if we
Yeah.
claim to have the Holy Spirit and all that, like we need his power. And if he's not working in us, then I don't if people don't have testimonies, it's that for me. Like if you don't even have a like testimony of Jesus coming to you in low moments, I don't
Right.
know if I could trust you. I can't even
I,
trust I can't trust the words coming out your mouth. I mean, you don't have to have the I was a crackhead story, but I need to know the God seeing you in a low moment.
no, that is so real. That is so real. Like it's just that genuineness in your testimony that makes people be able to relate to you. I think that's what I'm really learning. Like so many times, like I look at people who inspire me, or I see that they're living for Christ and growing in these ways, and it makes me want to grow in these ways too. But they look perfect in a sense. Like to me,
Yes,
looking at them, they look like they got it all figured out. And it's not until I see those moments of like true transparency when they say I don't have it all figured out. Like God is the one
yes,
has it figured out, and I'm following and trusting in Him. That I really relate more, and it just makes me truly see them in a relatable way. But so often, even with what I was learning, was I would try to be perfect. I would try to look like this perfect Christian to think that that's what people would be attracted to. But it wasn't until I really was like, hey y'all, like let
yes.
me let y'all
Yeah,
know
this is not
this
me.
is not me
Half the
exactly.
time when I close the door to my room, I'm screaming. I'm wondering why I act like this all day.
Yeah.
Like it's not, and nobody can be perfect. So when people put up that front, it's like it's honestly sad. It makes me have compassion because it's
Mhm.
almost like wow, you feel like you're called to live a life like Jesus, even though you're not him.
Yeah. Oof.
Like you're pretty much living in the way you're telling me you don't need him. And so I really feel bad for you.
That's the one.
I really feel
One.
bad for you because
Yeah.
you act like you don't even need him. You're good without him.
Yeah.
He did a one-time work on you, and I ain't never heard that. I ain't never heard of a one-time work before.
Girl, talk about it. Yes.
A
No,
all-in-one deal? Like,
yeah.
way he healed and delivered you from every single thing in your life, your heart, your mind. Please, Jesus, do it for me.
Right, right. You can do it
But
for
no,
them.
and then
Please come.
yeah, right. And I wanted to ask you something to the first part. Well, not even ask. It was something that you said that like resonated with me, and I think it was when you were talking about when you were cutting yourself and like you felt even worse after.
Yeah.
And I think it's so crazy how we do things like even if it be smoking, even be cutting, like or attempting suicide, anything like that, having those even those thoughts
Yeah.
and then how much worse we feel afterwards. Like
Yeah.
the enemy plays on giving us ideas to do things. Like he said, Asia, maybe cut yourself and you'll get some relief from the pain that you feel that you're feeling or the sadness.
Hmm.
And you felt even worse after when you did it. And
Yeah.
it's like I think that's his whole plan to get us in this deep, deep hole. And did you feel like that with more than that thing? Like anything that he instructed you to do, or like anything that you went to for relief, that it led you in a deeper hole?
Yes, definitely. Every time, every time. It was not one time that it didn't. Um, because I don't want to say it like this because I know like God's love, God is relentless. Like He's
Yeah.
never going to give up on us. And so when I say this, I'm not saying that. But sin does separate us from Him, and it's not that He is moving Himself from us. It's that we go into isolation and move ourselves away from Him.
Yes.
And so now I'm not reading my Bible as much as I should. Now I'm not in prayer talking to you. The only person who can help me through this, I'm turning my back on because I'm like, I know I didn't, I did you wrong, and I don't want to, face these
Yeah.
things. And so in that, that's just where that, the guilt, the shame, the con. As long as he can keep you in that place of isolation and just feeling guilty, like I'm too far away from God to pray. I'm too far. I backslid
Mm.
too far to do this, and you're going to get deeper in that hole. So I think that's what it was, like just feeling like these things definitely separated me from God, but not like Him not being able to come to me, just me not being able to surrender these things and truly face Him in those ways and say
Yeah.
like I fell short.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is, God knows the things we're going to do, so it's nothing in our story that catches him by surprise. But
Yeah.
I think that it's ironic how we think that stuff
Mhm.
catches him by surprise, and we're
Yeah.
like, okay, I didn't plan for this to happen, so I'm not gonna come to you until I figure out how to clean up this mess that I got myself into.
Make it make sense. We are
I'm like,
so
I might be back next week. I might be back next week to kind of if I got everything all situated. But it's like he doesn't even want us to do it alone.
we
So
can't. We can't even if we try. That's the funny thing. It's like he's just looking at us like, "Are you ready?" Like, oh,
we can't. He probably be watching us trying to tidy stuff up. He like, it's about to fall apart as soon as you walk away. As soon as you
right,
walk away from anything you tried to put together, it's gonna fall apart. Like he
exactly.
is the only glue that holds our lives together. The only glue.
Yeah,
And yeah, that's funny. She said we
I
can't.
want to. I want to make a point. Like so often, we think that we have to clean ourselves up and then come to Him
Yes,
clean. Like that is not what this is. Like the sanctification is this purifying and cleansing
yes,
that's taking place. We have to come to Him, as dirty, as broken as we are, and that's what He
yes.
uses. But so often we feel like if you just think about it, you don't clean yourself off and get in the shower.
No.
Clean, like, no,
You
that,
have
that
to get in the shower in order to literally be clean.
exactly.
And I think even that's why I think like a lot of it is in Psalm, like when it tells us to hide ourselves in his wings and
Hmm.
underneath him. And it's like if you're
Yeah.
not even getting under him, you don't even have a chance for his blood to wash you. If you
Okay.
standing all the way over here and your plan was to get in the shower and get clean, like how do you expect the water to hit you? You have to want to get close. And it
Yeah.
goes back into what you were saying about the enemy. He finds a way for us to get far from him because
Yeah.
then we'll never believe that his blood could do it for us if we're far enough. But the closer we get, the more we see, like the more I touch him or the more I just get a little piece of him,
He's
he's actually cleaning me
yeah,
himself. Like
yeah,
he's doing the work. And
yeah,
I think I think it's honestly so sad. Like my heart, like you even have a heart for people. It's the
Yeah.
compassion for me because I just grow so compassionate when I see people live in a way where they think that they have to present themselves a certain way before God.
Yeah.
And I even sometimes I do want to see people who even make people feel like they have to come to God a certain way. I know
Yeah.
God is working on me still, but
No, I mean that's real. As soon as you said that, just conversations with my mom replayed in my head because she would just tell me like, "Asia, did you get here overnight? Like, did God not let you go through this process? But you're looking at the people because honestly, I did get to a point where I was. Would you call that self righteousness? Like what you're describing, as far as like people having to the people that you are allowed to be around you or that you want around you, like already feeling like they have to have overcome these things or they need to,
yeah, like in order to be no, and honestly, like I'm gonna be perfectly honest. I'm not saying like I just told you, I
yeah,
have to live some of
yeah,
the things that I speak because it's not that I don't know it,
mm-hmm,
but sometimes I think we forget just how humanly we are.
yeah,
And we think, well, I know that it's not right, so I'm never gonna fall prey to it. But the very way we could be living could still
yeah,
be self-righteous and making
yeah,
people feel like I have to be a certain way. Like I've even had it said by my sisters. Like they think I'm the holier than thou sister
oh,
and I can't accept them or hang around them. And that honestly hurts me because it's like if I'm a Christian supposed to be leading people to
yeah,
Christ and my own family feels like this, what am
mm,
I doing? Evidently I'm doing something apart from Christ or I'm thinking that I'm better than because I have Christ, but would Christ really make me like that?
yeah,
So no, it's I have the same struggle at times. I'm like, am I acting like I'm better than this person?
yeah. No, that was a serious, part of 2022. Like I said, when I was really trying to
Mhm.
elevate and get to this place of, not feeling like I'm compromising or having to go backwards, that my first instinct was to just like kind of cut off people around me. Like,
Yeah, like
this
I
is,
can't hang around you no
I can't
more.
hang around you. Yeah. And, I just kept getting confronted with like kind of what you're saying, like that holier than thou, like, you didn't get here overnight, so don't like kind of rush me.
Yeah.
And I truly had to look at myself, and I think it wasn't even like a push for them to be perfect or to get to where I am. I think it was a fear for me that I didn't truly trust myself and where
Mm.
I was to not fall,
Yes. Yes.
back into
That's
those
the one.
things.
I'm like, I know I'm not strong enough to
I'm
walk
not,
in your
yeah.
environment. And but that's also like you said, it's a form of pride. That self-righteousness because it's pretty
Yeah.
much saying like I have to maintain this image like I can do it on my own.
Mhm.
But I know good and dang well if I walk into that same environment you're going in, I'm gonna do the same thing
Same
you're
thing.
doing, and then I'm gonna have no room to talk.
Talk about it. That's
And
good.
so it's honestly saying like I'm not gonna do this or being honest with them because I know that I can't withstand it. And
Mm.
I know that this isn't for me. But and then one other thing I was gonna say is for even us personally, who would you remember more in your journey? Somebody who had grace and walked with you through the things that you didn't understand and it was hard, or the people who was like, girl, just put that down. Like you don't need to be doing that. Like I remember the people who actually walked with
Yeah.
me and took the time. And
Yes.
so I think it's important to be that people for other people because it's often what we want. Like we gotta treat other people how we want to be treated and love our neighbors as we love ourselves. And if we aren't even loving ourselves to give each other grace, and that's the big thing.
Yeah.
If we can't give ourselves grace, how the heck we give it to somebody else? How the heck
Exactly.
we give it to somebody else?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and that's how I knew because many times people could see even the deeds and the things that I do as like good and it's good, but I'm like, if I wasn't giving myself grace, what place was it really coming from?
Mm.
And so, like, even now in my walk, it's like now I have to bring those things to God because it's like, yeah, I want to be a good person. I want people to see me as good. But if I'm not giving myself this grace and I'm supposed to treat other people how I want to be treated, how I treat myself, how am I giving them this? And then I'm not giving it to myself.
Talk
So, like,
about it.
what part of this is not pure in me? Because it
Mm.
should be that way first. What you're giving to yourself, you can then give to others. And so it's like it's that
Preaching.
stuff that doesn't make sense to me now. I'm just like,
Yeah.
okay, God, how am I doing this? Because
That's,
sometimes it doesn't make sense, but it's just all about walking through it with Him.
yes. No,
Yeah.
you on fire. Like that definitely just resonated with me. Um yeah, that I'm in prayer about those same things, often because I think giving ourselves grace is one of the hardest things that we
Mhm.
can struggle to do on this walk. I did just want to ask too, the question, that I asked previously, do you feel like there is a, I don't even want to say a blurred line, but when we think about Jesus and how he approached these things, he didn't, hang with sinners to be like them. He was,
Mhm.
around them to call them higher. He talked a lot about, it's not the healed who need a doctor, it's the sick. And so how can
Mhm.
you think that only if I hang around perfect Christians and
Yes.
perfect Christians, and only if I, do these things, that these people are going to be touched and impacted by, my testimony and everything
Mhm.
that God is doing through me, the light that I'm supposed to be. um so even in that, I feel like God was showing me how many limitations I was placing on what he was trying to do through me, because I thought I could only, help a
Mhm.
certain, group of people, or be around a certain group of people. And so when we look at that example, do you feel like that's something that you have kind of learned to say, okay, I can be in these places, I can be, with these people? I
Yes.
don't mean like even like, been out partying and stuff, and
Yeah.
seeing that, God doesn't want you in, but I mean like just, coming to where people are, meeting them where they are, and still not, that push, like you got to get,
Mhm.
get over these things, but still subtly just calling
Yeah,
them,
like giving him an opportunity to teach me in those
yes,
environments.
yes,
Like, no, I absolutely agree. And I've even, like, I know it's a bold prayer, but I've been asking God to give me the opportunity, or like put me in those rooms where I have to now be uncomfortable. It's easy to be in a room full of people who are claimed holy, or yeah, like we got this. We chilling. We know God. We can do whatever we want because we know our relationship. But
yeah,
it's like, what happens when you have to be held to a higher standard? What happens when you have to go somewhere, still be authentically you, but
yeah,
still say, I'm not gonna do that. Like,
yeah,
still have standards for yourself. And I think, like, we live in a world where people have become so comfortable, like you said, just hanging around holy people,
yeah,
or being in an area where they're not challenged to have to deny something.
yeah.
And that's honestly where we're tested, and where God can see trust us more. So I've actually been praying, like, God, put me in the environments where I have to say no.
Wow.
Like, put me in the face of people where I have to be like, um, that's not what I'm gonna do, but I'm not to say that that's not what you're gonna do. Like,
Yeah,
or even finding ways and asking him to give me wisdom to speak to people in those moments. Cause I could easily be like, I don't know what to tell you, girl. Like, acting like I got past that point. But what happened when I was there?
right.
And those are the moments, like, where we talk about our testimony. And I think the word does tell us we overcome by our testimony.
Amen.
And so if we're not going to those places where we used to actually be turning and living it up,
Yeah.
then what are we actually doing? Somebody came and got us. So why are we not going to get them? So yeah, it's a bold prayer. So pray for me as I pray that prayer.
Look,
And when I get in the room, I'll be like,
no, see, no, Kiana, I relate to that so much. And what's crazy is, as you were saying that, I was like, dang, I need to be praying that too. Because, right now, and I do feel like a lot of times I keep myself in a comfortable, area.
yeah,
Like
I
I
do
just,
too.
yeah. And that's not, I do feel like God is showing me the ways that I do place limitations on, the ways that he can use me, because I want to, like you said, just be around the people who already got it figured out. And that it doesn't work like that. And so I have been making a, conscious effort to, you know, do those things, but I could definitely do them more. Um, there was something I wanted to say to that. Hopefully it goes back to me.
Yeah.
But no, that just,
Even what you were saying, like, literally the past year of my life has probably been church, home, and people who I know are living the life that I'm wanting to live. And
yeah,
so, and to me personally, like, I mean, it might not be everybody's conviction. Like,
mhm,
to me, that's sad, because it's like, who have I had the opportunity to influence?
yeah,
And so, yeah.
that's good. That's deep. Yeah,
Did it
oh,
come?
that's what I was about to say. Okay, so even in that, being uncomfortable and being challenged in those ways, like how do you feel like you kind of can overcome those feelings of saying, like, I know that I'm strong enough? Like, do you ever
Mhm.
feel like going into these situations
And I'm
like,
gonna be honest, that's an area where I'm like, I have to petition God on, because I
mm,
don't want it to become prideful. Like, like, to what degree is it
yeah,
saying, like, I got this, I'm not gonna sin? And
right,
it's like, girl, you better still have your heart guarded. And then, like, to what degree am I being timid and not going into places
mm,
because I just don't want to sin, or have to go through shame and condemnation and guilt for falling prey to something again? Like, like, and I also don't want to live in a place where I feel like I never need God's grace. Like, I'm good enough.
Whew. Whew.
Because if I ever wake up and I'm just like, God, I'm fine today. I don't think I sinned today. I'm like, I'm good. Like, you're stupid.
You- You're
You're talking
deceiving.
real stupid. Because what? You don't need his grace?
Yeah.
And I think like I'm honestly like, to be truthful, I don't know to what degree is it me saying I'm prideful and I got this, or God, I'm gonna trust you to equip me like as I go into this
Mm.
environment.
Amen.
Because
That's a,
everything we do is decisions.
yeah.
It's not like he says go into this environment, you have no choice. We always have a choice.
Whew.
So it's the matter of if we're gonna obey and like trust that he's gonna give us what we need in those. So yeah. But no, I wrestle with that for sure.
Okay. I mean, I know I do, and I think like sometimes the line can get blurred because I'm like, like you said, is this pride or me not truly or feeling like
Mhm.
I don't need you, or is this also um, just me understanding that I might, fall short, and then I got to deal with needing your grace and those
Yes.
uncomfortable feelings too. So I just know, when he talks about not putting more on us than we can bear, us truly being able to trust him in those ways that he will never guide us or lead us to a place where, he hasn't prepared us or
Yeah.
equipped us already. So I always, can rest in that, but it does sometimes feel like, dang, I'm either one or the other.
Yes, it's nothing that, and that's one thing you definitely have to rehearse that he'll never send you in a place ill
Mm.
equipped, like unprepared. Like even when David fought Goliath, like David could have been like, "Oh my gosh, he's big," but David immediately his mind went to, "What if I already fought? Like
Ooh,
I fought the lion, the bears.
right.
Like I can easily take
Check
him
him
because
out.
God has
Yeah.
already been equipping me for it." And so I think one of the key things in it all is remembering, like he's allowed me to withstand it before. He's given me even more wisdom from this point in my life. So it's like, why do I feel like I can't conquer this? I think it's that balance of confidence versus cockiness.
Ooh. It's a difference. It's definitely a
Yeah.
difference.
And who name you calling on? If you like, I can do this,
Yeah.
or is it with him? I can do
Mhm.
this.
Amen.
So
Look, I can do all things,
yeah.
or I can do all things through Christ
Or
who
yeah, all things through Christ. It matters about the ending. It matters about the ending.
Let's talk
So
about
yeah, no, that's a good question. That's a really good question. And yeah, so that's honestly where I'm at. Because I'm like, I don't want to waste my life here on this earth not being used.
it. Amen.
Not
Amen. But
being
you,
used.
that's definitely not the case. That's impossible.
I know. I mean, I feel like even because even you as well having the heart that you don't want to do that, I think that automatically gives God the go that He can work in and through us. Like He'll teach us those things. Now, if we felt like God, I'm already about to be used because I gave you my life and
Yeah.
it's just is what it is. I think that's when He struggles because now we're relying on our own strength or we feel like we did something right
Right.
or to justify us outside of Him. And so yeah, I think that's good.
No, that's really good. Like we just went into a lot, and
Yes. Yes, but and I know we could talk for so much, but I mean for the last thing I want to ask, what is one piece of advice that you would give to someone in that lukewarm, I don't know phase who is straddling the fence?
that's a great question. So I honestly, it would have to be grace, and it's not to use that as an excuse to say keep sinning, but in those moments like that, I struggled with, being lukewarm and being on the fence. The one thing that I knew I wasn't giving myself was grace, so it just made me. It made it even harder to want to step away from these things because I already felt like I couldn't. Like I just felt like these things were, going to keep overcoming me because I didn't know how to surrender these things. But in that, truly understanding God's grace and mercy, that's when it sounds so backwards, but that's when I truly was
Mhm.
able to, walk away from these things. And so I think that so often, if you have people around you who aren't giving you grace and who aren't saying, like, it won't always be like this. Yes, you struggle with this today, but you can be delivered from this tomorrow. You're going to constantly feel like, how am I keep doing it? Like,
Yes.
people already we constantly think about how people view us. So even that sense of dealing with, the opinions of other people and their judgment, and then also dealing with the judgment from yourself, you
Yeah.
kind of put that judgment on God as if he sees you the way that you're viewing yourself, and that's, never the case. And so, yeah, just honestly, I just think grace is just truly important, because there's a verse, I believe it's in First or Second Corinthians, but Paul is talking about like the things that we
Yeah.
don't want to do, we do, and then the things that we do want to do, we don't do. And I think the more that we try to do those things in our own strength that we don't want to do, it makes it harder. But when we truly walk into God's grace and mercy, and we just lay these things at his feet and we surrender them, then we're able to, like, he's doing it now. Like, you don't even see, like, a lot. When I look back at how I got here, it wasn't me. It wasn't like I just woke up one day and was like, let me put down the blunt. No.
Like,
God,
I couldn't do that. You know how many times I
yeah.
tried to do it that way?
Yeah. He changes your desires. Like, he
Yes.
truly changes your desires. When we look and we talk about these things, we look more like him, because he is he's helping us. He's shaping us to look more like him. But
Mhm.
that is just coming from knowing him and just knowing his character, and loving the things that he loves and hating the things that he hates. But you're not going to get to that place until you truly. It starts with surrenderance. So yeah,
Mhm.
the best advice I could give is to surrender these things at his feet and to truly give yourself grace, because I mean, we're just all trying to, we're just really, truly all trying to figure it out. Like,
Yeah. And he can't, I absolutely agree with that. And I think people, because some people who I feel like been in church for a while can look at grace like you're just not being like hard enough. They just don't want to commit, or I mean, that those could be honest issues, but the truth of the matter is, if we're not giving ourselves grace, we're overwhelmed by this thought that we have to be perfect and striving for the next way we can show people we're perfect, rather than letting God have his perfect work. And
amen.
so I absolutely think that's like that's amazing advice. Amazing. I'm gonna even take it.
Yeah, I
I was
mean,
like, if you talking about me, Asia, just add me next time.
early.
Just
Yeah, I
at
mean,
me. But go ahead.
I just truly think about what I want to be told, then, like, what advice I needed then, and that, truly was the
Mm,
advice, like, grace.
yes. What advice did I need to be told? Yeah, that's a good thing too. Anytime somebody asks me to give advice, what did I need to be told in this moment at this
Yeah,
age?
right.
Yes, that is good. Well, I appreciate you for coming on here, for sharing wisdom, being honest, being open, being ready and willing. I honestly do appreciate you. I mean, I hate it's been this long since we've
Yeah,
talked. We definitely gonna
it's
have to set
ridiculous. This isn't
that. It's very ridiculous.
like
Giving ridiculous.
yeah.
It's giving ridiculous. But I'll pray us out because I feel in my heart too that God wants me to just pray just for your journey, for the things ahead, that you give yourself grace. So I'm gonna pray us out, and yeah, we'll get out of here. Dear Heavenly Father God, we just thank you for this time. We thank you for everything that was poured, everything that was said. We thank you even just for the transparency, God. We pray, God, that any type of attack that may be on its way, God, because of the testimony shared, God, because of the things spoken about of overcoming through you, Jesus, I pray even now against it in the name of Jesus. I pray against any type of demonic forces that might try to come overtake Ada's mind, her heart, God, anything surrounding her that might try to distract her, God, from where you want her to be in this moment, God, the season you have her in, the places that you have her to go, God. I pray that you give her strength, God, and give her wisdom, God, each and every day, God, that she wakes up, that she will remember your grace, remember your mercy for her, God, that she may walk in it, God, and show others that you have the same for them, God. We thank you and we praise you for the blessings that are going to be upon her life, God, just for her obedience, for her honesty, and just for her commitment to showing you to everybody whom she meets. We give you glory, we give you praise in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Oh my
Amen.
goodness. I'm so grateful that, I came on here, that you allowed me the opportunity to come on here. I'm just very proud of you and what you're doing. And I don't know, I'm very full. You know, when you full out the Holy Spirit, like,
Yes,
I just
girl,
love
I'm
the
full too.
anointing.
I feel alive. It is no, but it is something about coming together with believers. It is
Yeah,
something, and you just feel more alive, more, I
yes.
don't know, just rejuvenated. It's like a
Mhm.
revival. And
Yeah.
you revive and ready to conquer the world now with him.
Amen.
Conquer it with him. Not by
Amen.
ourselves, with him. But Yes. So we're gonna head out, and we'll see you guys next week on the next episode of Raw Roundtable.
All right, bye guys.